Hey everybody, Robot here from Vespa Motorsport and ScooterWest.com here in San Diego, California. So today I'm going to show you how to take apart the complete handlebars of your 2023 or later Vespa GTS. It could be the Super Sport like this model right here, the Super Tech, or the regular Super or the standard GTS. As long as it's 2023, they kind of completely re-engineered this. I'm going to show you how to remove the switchgear and more. In the past, I've showed how to remove the front handlebar cover to change out the levers. That's a pretty popular option because these scooters just come with regular silver levers. And you have this beautiful scooter with all this nice black trim, but they've missed out on the levers. So you can check out the Scooter West web store for the black levers for the 2023 and later GTS. Best way to search for items on ScooterWest.com that are specific to the newest generation of the GTS of 2023, 2024 as of this video is just search HPE2, so HPE2 lever, and that's our little internal code name for parts that are specific for the 2023 re-engineered and redesigned GTS. But first of all, I got a shameless trunk show to show you all those fun accessories that you can install in the handlebars. So here we go. All right, so I got the trunk open here. So I'm going to start with the most exciting items we have here, and they're pretty affordable, but you're going to need to wait till the next video on how to install these because they're not exactly easy to install. It's going to be quite an involved video on installation. I'm going to show you how to remove the switch gears. So you have your brand new 2023 or 24 GTS. Everything's black. There's one thing that's chrome on, the switch gear. So you can search for part number 1D003878-9, and there's 3 different options that we have available for the replacement covers on the switchgear. Well, the Super Sport already has some fake carbon fiber on that front horn cover. Well, might as well have switchgear that matches. So there's both the left and right side included with this kit. It's patterned after the original. Instead of chrome, it's got a hydroformed carbon fiber texture to it. And again, you have both the left and right side. Maybe you want just the classic glossy black. Well, the rest of the trim on the scooter's glossy black. So we have glossy black available, and the suffix is just -BK. And again, left and right side. And you can kind of see I partly assembled this one. So that's the inner frame that's from the original switch gear that you'd actually reused. But again, wait for the next video. I'll show you every step on how to rebuild the switches on these new style GTS switchgear. And the last set is the matte black. So just like the name implies, suffix is MBK. It's got that matte black, low sheen look to it. Probably the best for the handlebars because, you know, less distracting having stuff that's glossy in your face. So now I'm going to talk about some of the original Vespa accessories. So there's a set of heated gear that goes with the new GTS. It's specifically for the Super Sport and the Super Tech because those have the Bluetooth module already in there. So the PMP3 or the MIA PMP3, I think they've called it a couple things. It is possible to put the PMP, the Piaggio Multimedia Platform, which is the Bluetooth module, into the standard GTS or the Super that don't have that. But I'm not going to talk about that today. But if you're going to do any of the heated gear, which is the factory heated grips or the heated seat that I'll show you shortly, you're going to need the heated module. And this is specifically will fit the Super Tech and the Super Sport that already have that PMP in there. So 1D004429. Of course, you could install the heated seat, and I'll talk about that later, and it just won't function if you don't put this module in there. But I'll show you what it looks like. It's just a real small module that goes behind the leg shields there, and it controls all the heated functionality. There is an optional bracket as well. It's 1D004443. It's like an extra $25. To be honest with you, this module is so small, and that bracket's kind of hard to get right at the moment. You can just zip tie this right into the leg shield. It'll be perfectly fine. So moving on to the actual heated gear. So you have the heated grip set that's specific for the GTS, and it's 1C007079. Again, these won't work unless you have that module and the Bluetooth that's found on the Super Tech and the Super Sport. So it includes a set of grips. Unfortunately, they're a little bit more generic looking. The nice thing about factory heated grips is they attach to the handlebars much like OEM grips, and they also have set screws. So they're not likely to twist around. They're just engineered to be better quality and longer lasting than something like the Koso Apollo grips, which are absolutely excellent. I like the button that's integrated into the grips, and I've covered how to install those. And on a side note, you could actually install those on any GTS model, even the modern ones. And it may be a better situation because it has an easy to access button for the temperature versus these, you need to go through the menu on the little screen to change them. But you get the pair of grips, wires into factory connectors, no cutting. All the connectors are all present on the scooter already, includes instructions and even zip tie. And the last part, probably the best value of all the heated accessories, the heated comfort seat that's specific for the GTS. So it looks like a seat. You do see a little pigtail wire right here that's controlled by that little module. It's got this pretty cool like pattern on the top, and it's got like kind of a suede satin look to it, both black and gray stitching on there, and then it's got a hot stamp that says comfort right there. Pretty much looks like a standard seat, short of having that extra wire. You can look at the current price, but this seat actually is priced more affordable than the non-heated seats. So this is the best value when it comes to replacing a seat, even if you're not going to use the heated functionality. So you may be asking, what do all these heated parts cost? If you're doing the grip, the module, and the seat, it's just over 500 bucks for all those parts as of this video in mid 2024. Obviously, Piaggio parts, sometimes the prices change, so I can't tell you what they may cost in the future, but for original equipment, factory heated accessory set, that's not too bad, especially if you're doing the installation yourself. So I'm going to show you how to put the seat on real quick. It's a super simple install. Pretty much just lift this bucket right out. All right, so pretty simple to take off a GTS seat. So a 10mm wrench, I'm going to cheat with a little impact right here. And just make sure you have your hand on the seat because it's going to want to fall. Let's go ahead and lift the seat away. So you have the brand new seat. It's got that little connector. It goes right through the hole right here. Make sure the wire doesn't get pinched. I already set the screws into the bracket. It's going to make the job just a little easier. So just go ahead and get them started by hand. Maybe just want to have a helper do this because I'm kind of balancing the seat right now while I'm getting the fastener started. And again, I'll cheat with my little impact here. I'm just going to just tighten it just ever so slightly. You can see the whole seat will move around. It like still wiggles around on the bracket. And usually I like to do a test fit. Kind of, you see how the wiggle right there? I'll get it right where it drops. The seam is like centered with the body, and the latch is dropping right where it is. And then carefully lift the seat back up and do a final torquing on those fasteners here. So now, and it latches. So there's a little adjustability with that latch, and you just want to test it out, make sure it all works. And sometimes it's a little bit more work with the bucket. So on the left inside of the frame, you can see the diagnostic connector, and then there's this little auxiliary connector right here. And there's a little tab that you can push with your nail, and it pulls it right out of that connector sleeve that's attached to the wiring harness. And all you gotta do is, it's as simple as this. There's the two holes up there that line up with that tab, and it's gonna make a nice little click. And that's it. And I think even with the seat, there's an included zip tie. You just want to zip tie that connector right there. Put a small zip tie around the connector, and we could drop the bucket in there. like I said, that seat's a great value if you just want to switch up your seat. Have those available on the Scooter West web store. So let's get to the star of this show. We're going to take apart the handlebars. So there's our new seat. All right, so let's get the mirrors out of the way. Let's go ahead and lift these rubber boots. And you can just see a little bit of the mirror exposed. So this one is going to be reverse thread. So it's like I'm tightening. I'm turning it clockwise to loosen that nut, the lock nut that is. And then go ahead and spin the mirror clockwise. That's the left mirror I'm doing right here. Get that mirror out of the way. And this is going to be counterclockwise, just like a normal threaded fastener. So then go ahead and spin the mirror. And if you have a windshield in the way, of course, that's got to be removed before you take these mirrors and the handlebars all apart. So located just right under this little chrome cover on both far ends, you want to take a #1 Phillips screwdriver, which is a fairly small one, not a jeweler size, but a small Phillips, and remove that single screw from each side. And there's going to be a washer present as well, so make sure that stays. And it's best not to turn the ignition on if you're going to be dismantling all this, because there's connectors that will have voltage at them. So go ahead and take a #2 Phillips screwdriver. I kind of have a longer one right here. This is actually a machine screw. It's right in the center, underneath the headlight. You may want to magnetize the screwdriver. Just like those rear fasteners, there's a washer on there too. And another way to trap the screw is just use your fingernail, hold the screw. We could magnetize it. The washer's staying behind. I probably want to get a little pick and pull that washer out. So the washer doesn't fall off when I pull the handlebar cover on. And carefully using a pick to pull that little washer off. So now you can see the handlebar cover is pretty loose. And from both sides, you want to pull the edge out. So kind of use your finger in there. I'm pushing out towards the grip. Then do the same on the left side here. And there you go. And there's a metal gripper clip right in the center. And you can see there's a tether that goes to the headlight. So I'll show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and push this little tab. I use my thumb to open that tab to release the headlight connection. If you're going to remove the headlight, you can see there's 4 Phillips screws in there, pretty self-explanatory. Same with the headlight rim. Maybe you want to change out a chrome one for a black one, or vice versa. 2 screws located under here, and the headlight rim kind of folds from the bottom up and kind of hinges off from a little plastic tab on the top of the handlebar. All right, so as you can see, there's both the brake master cylinders right here. Levers are pretty self-explanatory. These are your brake switches. You may need to access those if your brake light's not coming on. You have the speedometer cluster. It's nice they don't have a mechanical speedometer. And you can see these large connectors right here, and there's one more back there. This is the connections for all the switch gear. You can see they have some zip ties that secure the wiring. And one little tip I like to do is have a white paint pen where a zip tie might go. I like making 2 hash marks so I know where the zip tie would go when I replace that, because I'm going to cut that zip tie out of the way. And when we disconnect the switches, the actual connector for the speedometer, it's pretty self-explanatory. There's no zip ties. From the left side, there's a little tab. I'm pushing my index finger right there. I'm pushing on that tab, and then you want to wiggle the connector to release it. So make sure you push that tab, and if it's coming off for the very first time, it may have some force. And there we go. So you got the speedometer connection disconnected and out of the way. We're going to go ahead and cut these zip ties. Those obviously aren't reusable. They're just standard zip ties. So both sides, go ahead and cut those. And you have the pair of wires that go to your brake switches. You can just pull them right off. There's no polarity to these, but make sure that the ignition isn't turned on. One of those wires does go hot when it's on. So now we have our large connections for the switches themselves. So the gray one is for your left switch right here. So again, just like the speedometer, there's a tab that you push. And it releases that connection right there. There's going to be one more connection behind that we'll get to, and that's for the joystick. It's a much smaller connection. And then for the right side is the black connection right here. So again, push this tab. May need to wiggle the connectors. There we go. So that's disconnected, and that's the only connection for the right side. They only have the one connection. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and separate this rear panel from the handlebars. So you have the metal handlebars, and there's 4 screws that secure this whole panel to the handlebars and the switch gear. Actually, it's 6 screws. So you want your T25 Torx driver, and if you don't want to lose the screws, you put a little grease on the tip or magnetize the screwdriver. Go pull out the pair from up here. And then there's a pair down here that actually attach the chrome switch housings. Those are going to be identical screws to what was threaded into the plastic handlebar cover. So go and remove all 4 of these screws. So you got 4 screws removed. Actually, I'm a little mistaken. They're a little bit shorter, so keep that in mind. And then at the top of the switch gear, there's some machine screws that have a completely different thread. So there's 3 different screw styles that hold all this together. And you see it's more the machine style screw that goes into a clip, a Tinnerman clip that wants to kind of fall off. So kind of keep that in mind. And you have 2 more screws. So actually a total of 8. Was mistaken by saying 6, but so right in these lower positions, these are going to be the hardest ones to get out because the screw is kind of behind the wiring harness right there. So buried way back there is the last screw. It's kind of behind all that wiring. So now you can see the handlebars have pulled away. I'm going to leave the screwdriver there because I don't want the screw to fall down into the frame. So the screws that thread into the painted body color are all the little bit longer plastic coarse thread screws. And you have the shorter screws that go in these lower corners, and then the machine screws go on these top corners. And you can see the Tinnerman clips, they kind of want to fall out. So sometimes the best practice, just go ahead and remove them. And when we put it back together, we'll put those back in place. And at this point, we'll go ahead and start pulling some of the wiring away. We still have the one connector that has the wire that goes down here, and get this screw out of here. So there's that one longer screw. Go ahead and pull that out along with the screwdriver. And we have our last connector we want to tackle. A little bit more room to work, or maybe you're pulling the whole handlebars off. These connectors have a little squeeze tab. I use the needle nose to squeeze here, and that's how you can disengage them from this handlebar tab right here. And I'm going to do the same for this white connection right down here because it's so buried. That's hard to disconnect that last connection with the connector in the way here. So go ahead and squeeze the tabs, and you're able to push the connection out. And there's this single connector right here. All right, so right here, there's a little push tab right at the top right there. So I'm gonna go ahead and push that tab to release the connection. And see, that's the easiest way to pull that connection down, and then route this connector out And just to put everything back, I'll just do that because plugging them in is easier than removing them. So let's put those all back in place and carefully pull the handlebar covers away. So if you want to remove the speedometer, there's 3 screws right here. So we're going to go ahead and remove the speedometer just to show you how this works. So there's 4 screws. They're all those same longer screws, the same ones that hold the handlebars to this back painted cover here. So the speedometer lifts right out. Pretty magical. There's one cool thing you could do. This inner frame can be replaced. There's both a silver variation and a matte black variation. There's part numbers for those. Find them on the Scooter West web store. And there's tabs that actually separate the lens of the speedometer if you ever had to replace that. A reason you may need to replace this frame is maybe you have a large windscreen on the scooter and the rays of light go through the windscreen. It actually will melt the parts inside the speedometer. So that's a recommendation. If you have a large windscreen, just throw a microfiber rag over your speedometer, kind of preserve that real nice look to your speedometer. One other item you can remove after you get the speedometer out of the way is these small Phillips screws will take the trim off. And there's different color trims. There's even aftermarket aluminum trim. So you could change out the trim that goes around the speedometer bezels, I like to call it. Now I want to remove the actual switch gears because the next video I'm going to go ahead and eliminate the chrome cover. So they have these shorter screws again. There's a pair of them. Let's go ahead and pull the 2 short screws. Just stay organized with all this stuff. Because if you put the longer screws in there, it might damage something. So it's pretty critical that you have the correct screws. And pretty much the same steps for this side right here. And the last screw, go ahead and separate the switch gear right here. So that's pretty much how to completely dismantle your handlebars, short of removing the master cylinders. I need to finish publishing a video on how to replace a master cylinder. The master cylinders, you have a pair of 8mm fasteners, or 6mm fasteners, you get 8mm socket to remove. You have the banjo bolt that has 2 crush washers. And of course, there's a whole procedure to bleed the brakes on these. Pretty critical on a scooter that has ABS. Not the best do-it-yourself kind of job, because if you get air in the ABS system, sometimes that's a lot of work. To remove the grips, such as if we're installing the heated grips, there's an Allen fastener. It removes this bar end right here. And there's a pair of Allen fasteners that separate this half clam for the throttle. And we would loosen or slacken up the throttle cables and we could put the heated grip in place. And then there's a procedure for tethering the wire. The left grip, it's a little bit different. It's not trapped by a tube and it's a throttle assembly. It's actually glued on. So you remove the bar end, we could put compressed air and blow the grip off. Or if you don't care about the grip, you could actually just cut it right off. If you're not using the heated factory grips, you would glue new grips on. I've covered that in the past videos on how to change out grips. Don't necessarily need to take it completely apart to do that. The heated grips actually have 2 set screws that hold it to the metal to the handlebars, so they're not likely to twist. So it's a little different design. But that's pretty much everything you need to know about dismantling the handlebars. Probably a little bit more complicated than you would ever imagine, especially how clean they look with the plastic bodywork around, but there's quite a bit going on underneath the handlebars. And a lot of these steps do apply to other models such as the Primavera or even the older GTS. But that's how you go about taking the handlebar covers off. So look out for the next video. We're going to go ahead and eliminate these chrome switch gears and replace them with a new set of either carbon or gloss black switch gear covers. So you can see lots of work to dismantle all those little individual switches from the back of these covers here. All right, well, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed that video. I have plenty of other content on these newer generation GTSs, and of course over 900 videos on all the older generations of modern Vespas and even vintage Vespas. So check out our YouTube channel, Vespa Motorsport, and you could look at the playlist and search for individual videos I've done in the past. I might find one that's useful for you. I'll see you on the next one. Robot here from scooterwest.com here in San Diego, California.